Thank you, Madam President. To you and to my other colleagues here, as you may recall, I'm a believer that this legislation smells like a rotten egg. Much like one bad apple spoils the whole barrel, it only takes one bad egg to make an otherwise good policy foul. And I'm not really interested in overcooking these eggs, but I feel it's necessary to discuss why I'll be voting no on this legislation. And that's pretty much it for my bad egg puns. I wanted to do more, but I ran out of time. This legislation, as the previous speaker mentioned, originates because the legislature got involved in 2009 in a way that was significantly inappropriate, in a way that allowed a special interest group, to bully some of our own citizens into action, rather than going through the natural process that they should have of going to the marketplace and demanding that, or informing consumers, and then having consumers make an informed choice. They went instead to the legislature and asked for help. They came to the legislature and said, protect us from these bullies. We've made a deal with them, and we want your help putting that in law so they leave us alone. And the legislature capitulated to that. A lot of the farm groups capitulated to that. They said, you know, we're scared. We saw what happened in California. We're scared about what the low knowledge of agriculture is doing to our consumers, and we don't have the ability to fight this off. I think they were wrong. I think that was a huge mistake, and now we're paying for it. But just to prove the point of how wrong that was, all you have to do is look at the rest of the agricultural industries that are out there and see how we've had to respond to market pressure. No BST, no tail docking, no veal crates, lots of other good scientific animal husbandry practices thrown to the ash heap for no other reason than special interest groups whose key mission is the destruction of animal agriculture. Make no mistake about it, HSUS has been very clear for years. They're not interested in helping a few chickens or helping a few cows. Their ultimate interest is ending animal agriculture. They don't want us doing it anymore. So if you're a supporter of that, that's fine. I happen to disagree with you, and I happen to think that most of the population, after how they reacted to the threat to their hamburgers, disagrees with you. But we have seen now the damage that was done in California by HSUS's efforts to consumers. The price of eggs is a real issue. The additional cost should not be lost on any of you today, because you only have to go to a Michigan grocery store and see how much more it costs to buy cage-free eggs rather than buying conventionally raised eggs. The cost difference is real. Less than $1 for a dozen, more than $4 for a dozen. Are you today prepared to answer to your consumers that you are voting today to raise the price of their eggs? Because it is not debatable. You are voting to raise the price of their eggs. You voted in 2009 to raise the price of their eggs, and you're voting today to raise them further. Why is the industry not kicking up a big fuss? Because there's no industry left. The 2009 law eviscerated the egg-laying business in our state. Now it's bigger. There's more eggs being laid now than before. Maybe you think this speech is one too. There's another pun for you. But 7 egg producers with millions and millions of chickens, and I don't care, they want to have 100 million chickens knock themselves out. I don't care about the size of the operation. But to allow that industry to constrict and consolidate to 7 players at the expense of the families that used to be involved, and to continue to promote the entry into that business in a more and more expensive way is unjust, is unfair to our citizens, and is unfair to competition, which is another vote for increasing prices. On top of that, within this legislation, those 7 producers, that monopoly, has made sure for themselves to excuse themselves from following the very regulations they're asking you to vote today when they're selling eggs that are no longer in the shells. Does that make any sense? Why should they get a free pass when the eggs are in a bag instead of in a carton? It's unjust. It's unfair. It's wrong. Then they ask for a carve-out to make sure that nobody from other states can send their eggs here unless they too have spent the added expense. Now, makes sense. I would love to pass legislation here that forces Michigan consumers to only buy milk from Michigan farms. That would be awesome for me. Okay? Wouldn't it be great for Ford Motor Company to get us to pass a law that says the only cars you can buy in this state have to have a blue oval emblem on the front of them? Boy, that would be really great for Michigan, wouldn't it? Or maybe you'd rather it was a GMC on the front, whatever it is. This is what we are talking about today. This is what you are posed with voting with on an otherwise good bill package. The end of this bill, the last 10 pages or so, is the poison pill. It is the bad egg. As I detailed to you yesterday, Interstate Commerce Clause violation is clear, not to mention just the overall bad economic policy, as I previously stated. And so often when we discuss policy here and we are confronted with this, we create artificial deadlines all the time. You know that. We're always creating artificial deadlines here. Those deadlines then we hold up to everybody and say, we got to do it by this date or something else is going to happen bad. So hurry up, help me out. You don't have time to think about an alternative. Don't have time to bring a sub in. Don't have time to amend this. Don't have time to have different talks. We already had talks. We already had the group together. We've met for a couple of years. We had agreements. You're violating our agreements. Boy, you're throwing a monkey wrench into the whole thing. That's the usual practice around here. This is no different. Those are all artificial constructs. We have to recognize that we can't vote for bad policy just because some group says, well, we agreed to it. The truth is, they agreed to the bad policy in 2009. That policy, as a previous speaker mentioned, means they're supposed to do something by next year that their industry now says isn't even good enough anyway, so they've got to further change that by 2025. We're putting the industry standard into law by 2025. And just for the comfort of those who are worried about, extending the previous practice that was outlawed in 2009 for next year, everybody's already changed. There's nobody using those battery cages to any real extent anymore anyway. They were already adopted. They just need more time now to adapt to the 2025 standard. We don't need to put this in law. By repealing the 2009 Act, as I suggested yesterday, we would allow the industry to police itself, and they're already all members of that industry. They'd have nowhere else to go. So this remains flagrantly unnecessary law. It's unnecessary for us to do this, and it's a bad precedent to set going forward in the future. We continue in the agriculture world to be very deferential people. And so dairy farmers come along, a beef producer comes along and says, here's what my industry needs. But somebody from another industry comes to me, poultry, eggs, ducks, whatever you want to talk about. I don't know much about those things. And so it's very easy within the ag community to say, whatever your guys need, fine, we can get there as long as you're there for me when I need you. And so this sense that somehow, well, the ag community is for this, so therefore it's okay because I want to support my farmers, this is merely the present circumstance that agriculture finds itself in nationwide of being so small in numbers nowadays that we can't make for ourselves a lot of headway without the support of other groups. And so we labor hard then to get along, to work together, to try to watch out for each other's best interests, and to try to not be argumentative, especially publicly. But yet, these folks who have made this bad deal, and those who are willing to go along with it, are unwilling to acknowledge that the devil will come back for the rest of us. He's not going to just walk away and say, I got the chickens, I'm all set now. It'll be the cows, it'll be the ducks, it'll be the rest of agriculture, because their ultimate goal continues to be to eliminate animal agriculture. So what are you getting a chance to do today? Getting a chance to vote on some good policy changes regarding the Animal Industry Act, things that are mostly already being done by law because of executive orders and things like that. It's not a bad bill until you get to those last 10 pages. And there's where we can't allow this to go forward. That's why I can't vote for this. We are not doing agriculture any favors today. We are not doing consumers any favors today. We're doing some favors very specifically to some people who have made a very bad deal that I don't believe they fully comprehend just how the price that they will pay has not been fully called for yet. They've sold their soul, and the devil will come to collect eventually. But meanwhile, the collateral damage is real. You are voting today to raise egg prices if you vote yes. You are voting against good animal husbandry practices today if you vote yes. You are voting to endanger other good animal husbandry practices as collateral damage today if you vote yes. You are voting today to violate the principles of the Interstate Commerce Clause if you vote yes. You are voting today, if you vote yes, to further entangle the legislature. Because when the next deadline comes up, and not a made-up one, but a real one that you're voting on today for 2025, that deadline's going to have a problem too. Somebody's going to say we don't, cage-free is not actually really cage-free. I don't know if you've heard that, Madam President, but, this whole principle about cage-free, it's not really cage-free. It's not like the chickens are out running free and wild. Okay, they're still in cages. They just happen to be large cages with a lot of chickens packed into them, rather than small cages with only one chicken in them. So, don't fool yourself. The chickens are still in cages. So, I encourage you to vote no. I encourage you to consider not being bullied. I encourage you to vote for your consumers by voting no, and by forcing this issue to be negotiated with genuine interests of agriculture rather than the small interests of a few who've poisoned an otherwise good policy bill. Thank you, Madam President.